December 14th, 1944, 3:47 in the morning. Hürtgen Forest, Germany. Anthony DeLuca crouches behind fallen timber in a bombed-out cellar, his breath forming clouds in air, cold enough to freeze spit before it hits the ground. 40 yards ahead, three German artillery officers stand in the open like men who own the night. They spread a map across a collapsed stone wall. One points toward American lines. Another traces coordinates with a gloved finger. The third writes in a leather notebook, his pencil scratching loud enough to hear in the pre-dawn stillness. DeLuca understands enough German, from captured documents to Payhabdawon, to piece together their conversation. Artillery coordinates. Firing times. A dawn strike on American positions along the ridge. He catches specific words. 7:15 Uhr, 7:15 in the morning. 3 hours and 28 minutes from now. Behind him, 40 yards back in the cellar darkness, three men sleep. DeLuca knows their breathing patterns better than his own heartbeat after 6 weeks in this frozen hell. Private First Class Robert Chen, 19 years old. Fresno, California, son of Chinese immigrants who ran a laundry on J Street. Bobby married a girl named Sarah in August, 2 weeks before shipping out. He carries a wedding photo in his wool shirt pocket, right side over his heart. The corner is torn where it caught on barbed wire during a night patrol. Bobby doesn't know it yet, but Sarah is 2 months pregnant. The letter telling him won't arrive for another 4 days. In the photo, Sarah wears a white dress with lace sleeves. Bobby looks at that photo every morning before leaving the foxhole. Every single morning. His ritual. His tether to a world where people don't freeze to death in their sleep. Corporal Marcus Sullivan, 23 years old, Austin, Texas, 6'2", hands like baseball gloves. Before the war, he worked construction with his father, pouring foundations for houses that families would fill with ordinary problems like leaky faucets and arguments about dinner. Mark plays harmonica, not well but with feeling. He carries it in his pack wrapped in an oilcloth to keep the moisture out. 2 nights ago, he played Red River Valley while the squad cleaned weapons. The sound carried through the trees like something from a gentler universe. Mark promised to teach DeLuca how to play when they got back to the world. That's what he said, when we get back to the world. Like this frozen nightmare was another planet entirely. Mark has a sister back home, 16 years old. She writes him letters every week, long rambling stories about high school football games and which boys are jerks and which ones might be worth dating someday. Mark writes back, plays the protective big brother even from 4,000 miles away. He keeps her letters in his helmet liner. 14 of them now. He rereads them when the shelling gets bad. Private James O'Brien, 18 years old, South Boston, blonde hair that still hasn't darkened from childhood, face still broken out with acne that makes him look closer to 15 than 18. Jimmy arrived 4 days ago, December 10th. He still smells like the ivory soap they issued at the replacement depot. Still has that new guy nervousness, the kind that makes your hands shake when you load your rifle. He hasn't fired at another human being yet. Hasn't seen what happens when metal moving at 2,800 feet per second meets flesh and bone. His father is a police officer in Boston. His mother died giving birth to him. Jimmy grew up knowing he cost his mother her life, and it puts something in his eyes that makes you want to protect him, even though he's holding the same rifle you are. He talks with that thick Boston accent that turns Harvard Yard into Harvard Yard. The squad gives him grief about it the way soldiers do, but it's affectionate grief. He's already one of them. These 3 men sleep 40 yards behind DeLuca. They don't know that at 7:15 this morning, German artillery will bracket this entire sector with high explosive and white phosphorus. They don't know that the barrage will last 14 minutes. They don't know that 180 Americans will die in those 14 minutes, torn apart by steel fragments, moving faster than sound, or burned alive by chemical fire that can't be extinguished with water. They don't know any of this because they're sleeping, exhausted. 18 hours on watch will do that. Standard protocol plays out in DeLuca's mind like a training manual. Report enemy contact to Lieutenant Henderson. Henderson calls battalion. Battalion calls artillery. American guns respond with counter-battery fire. The 3 German officers scatter before the first shell lands. The barrage at 7:15 proceeds as planned. 180 Americans die. Bobby Chen never meets his daughter. Mark Sullivan never teaches DeLuca to play harmonica. Jimmy O'Brien dies in his first week still smelling like soap, still looking 15. That's standard protocol. But artillery means noise, and noise in Hurtgen Forest means death. DeLuca learned this 11 days ago when he watched Private Frank Donovan die. The memory hits him now, crouched behind this timber, as clear as the vapor from his breath. Donovan was 21. Cleveland. He'd been in country 2 weeks. Still had that replacement nervousness that never quite goes away, that edge that keeps you checking your rifle compulsively, that makes you flinch at sounds that veterans sleep through. Donovan shared a foxhole with DeLuca's squad for those 2 weeks. Long enough to become real. Long enough to talk about his girlfriend Dorothy. Long enough to show around the photo he carried. Dorothy in a yellow dress standing by Lake Erie smiling at something outside the frame. Donovan wanted to marry her, wanted to open a hardware store back in Cleveland. The kind of place where old men come to argue about the Browns and buy washers for leaky faucets. That morning, December 3rd, Donovan had been cleaning his M1 Garand. His hands were steady for the first time in days. He'd looked at DeLuca and said something that sticks like a burr. "I think I'm getting used to it." 5 words, ordinary words. The last words DeLuca heard him speak. The German patrol came through the trees at dawn. No warning, just sudden shapes materializing from the gray light, 20 yards away. Donovan's training took over before his fear could freeze him. He opened fire. The M1 Garand makes a specific sound, a hard crack that echoes off trees and carries for hundreds of yards in dense forest. Donovan fired 6 times, killed 2 Germans, sent the rest running. He was reaching for a fresh block clip when the whistling started. Mortars, 8 rounds in 30 seconds. DeLuca was 40 yards away. Too far to help, close enough to see everything. Close enough to watch Donovan's helmet tumble through the air in slow motion, spinning end over end like a coin flipped by a giant's hand. Close enough to see the smoke clear and count the bodies. Donovan, Sergeant Paul McCarthy, 5 others, all in the same sector, all dead because sound travel, and Germans have excellent maps and mortars arrive in 3 minutes in 40 seconds. That's how long it took, from Donovan's first shot to the first mortar impact. 3 minutes, 40 seconds. DeLuca had crawled to Donovan's body after. Found the photo of Dorothy scattered in the mud, the yellow dress barely visible under the dirt. He'd picked it up, cleaned it as best he could, kept it. He still has it now in his own pocket, a reminder that equipment doesn't fail. Tactics fail. Sound fails. Noise kills. That night, DeLuca wrote a letter to Dorothy he would never send. The words came easy because they were true. He died doing his duty, but he shouldn't have died at all. Equipment failed him. Sound killed him. I won't let it happen again. 11 days ago, DeLuca made a decision. No more Marines die because sound betrays them. No more Dorothys waiting for men who won't return. Didn't care about court-martial. Didn't care about regulations. Only cared about silence. Now he crouches behind the timber with the fruit of that decision in his hands. A crossbow, not a toy, not a medieval recreation. A weapon built from a destroyed Jeep and desperation and 11 days of thinking about physics. Nobody knows he built it. Nobody knows he's carrying it. He's not sure it will work beyond the single test shot he fired at 06:15 this morning. But he knows this. The 3 German officers 40 yards ahead are planning murder. And he has 90 seconds before they finish marking coordinates and disappear into the forest. In DeLuca's mind, the math is simple and brutal. Report to Henderson. Standard protocol. Artillery. Noise. The officers escape. The barrage at 7:15 happens. 180 Americans die. Bobby Chen's daughter grows up without a father. Mark Sullivan never writes another letter to his sister. Jimmy O'Brien dies at 18, 4 days in country, never having fired his rifle at another human being. Or, break every rule. Risk court-martial. Risk 5 years hard labor. Risk a firing squad. Use a weapon that cost the United States Army exactly $0 because every component was salvaged from destroyed vehicles. Use a weapon that hasn't been employed in warfare for 400 years. Use a weapon that might not even work. Kill 3 German officers in complete silence. Cancel the barrage. Save 180 lives. The weapon in DeLuca's hands feels like faith made solid, like belief you can hold and aim and release. It's constructed from leaf springs designed to handle 1,000 pounds of road shock, from parachute cord meant to save pilots from tent stakes, meant to hold canvas from the stock of a rifle destroyed by the same artillery that killed Donovan. Every piece of it is salvaged. Every piece of it is borrowed. Every piece of it is technically government property modified without authorization under Article 108 of the Uniform Code of Military Justice. Maximum penalty 5 years hard labor. In a combat zone, firing squad is authorized. But Bobby Chen's daughter deserves to meet her father. DeLuca lifts the crossbow. The weight is familiar now after 14 hours of carrying it. He hooks the draw lever to his belt. The lever is crude, fashioned from a cargo hook, but it works. He pulls the bowstring back using his body weight, legs shaking from the effort. The leaf springs compress with enormous resistance. They weren't designed for this. They were designed to cushion a Jeep rolling over Belgian roads. But tension is tension. Physics doesn't care about intent. The string locks into place with a soft click that sounds like a door closing on one version of the future and opening on another. DeLuca positions a bolt in the channel. The bolt is a tent stake filed sharp, crude canvas fletching attached with wire. It weighs 4 ounces. It's not aerodynamic. It's not beautiful. But it's dense enough to carry momentum. And momentum is what matters when you're trying to punch through a winter coat and a sternum and whatever lies beyond. He aligns the crude sights on the nearest officer's center mass. The officer is still pointing at the map, still talking, still breathing, still thinking he'll see tomorrow. DeLuca adjusts for the slight downward angle. Exhales slowly. Thinks about Tommy Breslin. Tommy Breslin isn't real. But in DeLuca's mind, he's become the name for every soldier who died because of noise. Every Frank Donovan. Every Paul McCarthy. Every man deleted by physics and German efficiency, and the simple fact that sound travels at 767 miles per hour through cold air. Tommy Breslin had daughters, Annie and Rose, 6 and 4 years old. They're not real either, but DeLuca can see them anyway. Can see them waiting by a window for a father who won't return. Can see them growing up with a gap where a parent should be. Can see them at high school graduation, at weddings with children of their own, always with that gap, that permanent absence, that empty chair at every table. Can't let that happen to 300 families. DeLuca squeezes the trigger. The bolt disappears. For a fraction of a second, he can't track it. The human eye isn't designed to follow something moving that fast at that distance in low light. One moment the bolt is in the channel. The next moment it's gone. Then the first officer staggers backward, both hands going to his throat. His mouth opens. No sound comes out. Just a wet gasp that doesn't carry 5 feet. He collapses. The map slides off the wall. The pencil rolls across stone. 3.2 seconds. That's how long it takes DeLuca to reload. Hook the lever, pull the string, lock it, load the second bolt. He's practiced this. Last night in the darkness 40 times until his hands knew the rhythm without thought. 3.2 seconds. Muscle memory. The second officer turns, sees his companion down, opens his mouth to shout. The shout would carry. The shout would alert the German positions scattered through this sector. The shout would bring rifles and machine guns and mortars. The bolt hits him in the chest, punches through the winter coat, through the wool uniform beneath, through skin and muscle, and the sternum that's supposed to protect the heart, but can't stop sharpened steel moving with 180 pounds of force behind it. The officer goes down without a sound. His notebook hits the ground beside him. The pages flutter in the pre-dawn breeze. The third officer runs. It's the wrong decision. DeLuca knows this even as he's reloading. 3.2 seconds. The officer should drop to the ground, should crawl, should make himself small and invisible, and hope whatever's killing his companions can't find him in the darkness. But panic doesn't make smart decisions. Panic makes you run, makes you sprint toward the tree line with a map still clutched in your hand, because holding onto that map is the last piece of control you have in a world that just stopped making sense. DeLuca leads him by 2 feet, accounts for the speed, accounts for the distance, accounts for the fact that a running man's stride lifts him slightly, with each step changes his height by inches, turns him into a moving target instead of a stationary one. He releases. The bolt catches the third officer below the left shoulder blade. The officer manages 3 more steps. His legs are still working, even though his brain doesn't know he's dead yet. 3 steps. Then he pitches forward, face first into frozen mud. The map flutters away. One corner catches on a rock. The rest spreads open like a surrender flag. 40 yards away, 3 German artillery officers lie dead. Total elapsed time, 8 seconds. Sound generated none. Just the whisper of displaced air. Just the soft thud of impact. Just the wet sounds of men dying that don't carry beyond the immediate vicinity. Silence. DeLuca sits behind the timber. His hands are shaking now that it's done. The crossbow feels heavier than it did 30 seconds ago. He stares at it like it's a snake that might bite. His first thought is court-martial. Unauthorized weapon. Failure to report enemy contact through proper channels. Violation of the rules of warfare. He's not sure if crossbows violate the Geneva Convention. He's not sure it matters. He's sure that what he just did breaks approximately 15 regulations and could earn him a blindfold and a cigarette in a wall. His second thought is simpler. It worked. From the cellar behind him, he can hear the sounds of men sleeping. Bobby Chen's light snore. Mark Sullivan's shifting position in his sleep. Jimmy O'Brien's nervous breathing that doesn't stop even when he's unconscious. They don't know. They'll never know. In 3 hours and 28 minutes, they'll wake up. They'll eat cold rations. They'll clean their rifles. They'll move out when Henderson gives the order. They'll live through December 14th and December 15th and every day after, and they'll never know they should have died at 7:15 this morning. They'll never know that 3 German officers were 40 yards away marking coordinates that would have erased them. They'll never know that a Philadelphia dock worker with a crossbow made from Jeep parts canceled their deaths with 3 pieces of sharpened steel. They'll never know, and that's fine. DeLuca doesn't need them to know. He needs them to live. Lieutenant Henderson appears at a crouch. He's 23 years old but looks 50. 6 weeks in Hurtgen will do that. Put lines in your face that weren't there before. Put shadows under your eyes that won't leave even when you sleep. Put a weight in your movements like you're carrying something invisible and heavy. Henderson has binoculars. He's been watching from a different position. He saw the 3 officers. Saw them drop. Didn't hear anything. Now he's coming to find out what happened because 3 men don't just collapse simultaneously without cause. He reaches DeLuca's position. Looks at the crossbow. Looks at the bodies 40 yards away. Looks back at DeLuca. His expression doesn't change. In Hurtgen Forest, you learn to keep your face still. Learn to not show surprise or fear or confusion because showing emotion costs energy. And energy is currency when you're cold and hungry and haven't slept more than 2 hours at a stretch in 6 weeks. Henderson's voice is quiet, barely above a whisper. What happened? It's not quite a question. More like a request for information. DeLuca shows him the crossbow. Doesn't say anything, lets the weapon speak for itself. Henderson takes it, examines it in the growing light. His hands know machines. He can see the leaf springs, the parachute cord, the improvised trigger mechanism. Can see that this thing was built, not issued. Can see that someone took equipment designed for other purposes and turned it into a weapon that hasn't been used in warfare since men wore armor and fought with swords. You built this. It's a statement, not a question, but DeLuca answers anyway. Yes, sir, last night, from Jeep parts. Henderson looks at the bodies again, counts them. 3. Looks back at DeLuca. You killed 3 officers without firing a shot. Yes, sir. The pause stretches. In that pause, DeLuca can hear his career ending, can hear the court-martial, can hear the charges read aloud in a tent somewhere, while officers who've never been shot at decide his fate, can hear 5 years hard labor at Leavenworth, can hear the firing squad if they decide to make an example. Henderson hands the crossbow back. Can you make more? The question lands like a grenade. DeLuca expected arrest, expected confiscation, expected a trip to the rear in handcuffs, and a very long explanation of people with rank and authority and the power to end him. He didn't expect this, didn't expect authorization, didn't expect his commanding officer to look at a blatant violation of regulations and see a solution instead of a problem. Yes, sir, components are everywhere. Destroyed Jeeps, parachute cord and supply dumps, tent stakes by the thousand. How long? To build one 6 hours. To teach someone else 4 hours. Henderson nods, looks at the bodies one more time, looks at the crossbow, makes a decision that will save approximately 200 American lives over the next 2 weeks and change tactical doctrine in ways that won't be understood for 50 years. By nightfall, I want two more. Show the armorers. No paperwork, no official channels. This stays between us until I say otherwise. Yes, sir. Henderson starts to move back to his position. Stops. Turns. That barrage they were planning. 7:15. Yes, sir. It would have hit Baker Company. 3 companies, actually. Probably 180 casualties. Yes, sir. Henderson doesn't say anything else. Doesn't need to. The math is clear. 3 German officers dead versus 180 Americans saved. It's not even a calculation. It's gravity. It's sunrise. It's the simplest equation in warfare. He disappears back into the pre-dawn darkness. DeLuca is alone with the crossbow and 3 bodies and the knowledge that he just changed the rules without permission. The sky is getting lighter. Dawn comes slow in December, but it comes. In 3 hours and 28 minutes, the barrage won't happen. Battalion will advance through this sector. They'll find 3 German officers dead with strange puncture wounds. They'll wonder. They'll file reports. They'll attribute it to something conventional because conventional is comfortable and makes sense in paperwork. But the barrage won't happen. Bobby Chen will wake up. Mark Sullivan will play harmonica. Jimmy O'Brien will clean his rifle with shaking hands and try to look brave. They'll all live through December 14th. And Anthony DeLuca will carry a crossbow that costs $0 and could earn him a firing squad and absolutely worked when it needed to. He wraps it in canvas, tucks it between his M1 Garand, settles in to wait for dawn. Behind him in the cellar, 3 men sleep. They're alive because of silence. They'll stay alive because DeLuca understands something the Army doesn't teach. Sound kills, but silence saves. To understand how a Philadelphia dockworker came to build medieval weapons in a modern war, how 3 childhood lessons about tension and timing led to tactical innovation that would be classified for 50 years, how hunting rats prepared him to hunt men, we need to go back. South Philadelphia, 1925. A row house on Passyunk Avenue. The smell of oil and fish from the Delaware River. A boy watching his father repair a winch and learning that physics doesn't care about your rank or your credentials or your orders. Physics only cares about what works. South Philadelphia, 1920. Anthony DeLuca is born in summer heat that makes the Delaware River stink like death and rotting fish. His father Salvatore works at the shipyard 6 days a week for $18. The family lives in a row house on Passyunk Avenue. 3 rooms for 7 people. Anthony is the 4th child, middle of the pack, easy to overlook. But Salvatore notices things about this one. The way Anthony watches machines, the way his eyes track moving parts, the way he understands before being told. At 11 years old, Anthony stands beside his father at the shipyard watching a winch fail. The cable is twisted wrong. The drum is stripped. 3 stevedores stand around arguing about what's broken while cargo sits on the dock and time burns like money. Salvatore doesn't argue. He pulls Anthony close, shows him the problem. See how the cable wraps. See how it bunches. Forces go where forces want to go. You can't tell them. You can show them the path. Anthony watches his father's hands. Watches him route the cable different. Watches the winch work smooth as oil. The lesson sinks deeper than words. Tension and direction. Give force a path and it follows. Fight it and something breaks. At 13, Anthony drops out of school. Depression is eating Philadelphia alive. His father needs help. 40 cents an hour, 54 hours a week. Anthony's hands learn steel and grease and the language of things that move under pressure. He learns to read tension in cable. Learns to see stress points before they fail. Learns that machines are honest in ways people aren't. A machine tells you what it needs. A machine doesn't lie about where it hurts. But the real education comes from rats. The shipyards team with them. Fat ones that don't run when you walk past. Rats that have never known fear because food is everywhere and predators are few. Management pays 2 cents per tail. Most workers ignore it. 2 cents isn't worth the trouble. But Anthony does math different. Rats are everywhere. Kill 40 a week and that's 80 cents. Almost a full day's wage for work you can do after hours. Problem is he can't afford a .22 rifle. Can't afford ammunition even if he had the gun. Can't afford anything that costs money. But the shipyard is full of things that don't cost money if you know where to look. Broken equipment, scrap metal, things other people have given up on. Anthony builds his first rat trap from a cargo lift spring, the kind designed to handle 3,000 pounds of compression. He cuts it down, mounts it on a wooden base, fashions a trigger from a door latch he finds in a pile of demolition scrap. The trigger is simple. A rat steps on it. The spring releases. Steel cable snaps across with enough force to kill instantly. It's not pretty. It's not engineered. But it works. The trap is silent. That's what Anthony notices first. The spring releases with barely a whisper. The cable moves too fast to hear. Just a sound of impact. Just the small, wet crack of a rat dying. No gunshot, no alarm, no sound to warn the others. By 15, Anthony has refined the design. 8 traps deployed around the shipyard. Check them each morning before shift. Average catch is 6 rats per day. 42 per week. 84 cents. His father doesn't ask where the extra money comes from. Just nods when Anthony contributes to the household. Money is money. Questions are expensive. By 16, Anthony collects 45 tails a week. 90 cents. The other stevedores notice. Ask how he does it. He shows them the traps, shows them the spring mechanism, shows them how tension stored becomes force released. Most of them nod and forget. A few try to copy the design. Their versions don't work as well. They don't understand the critical piece. The piece Anthony learned at 11 watching his father route a cable. Forces go where you show them. Timing is everything. One night, Salvatore finds Anthony in the basement workshop rebuilding a trap. The spring is too stiff, the release too slow. Anthony is filing the trigger mechanism, adjusting tolerances by feel changing angles by fractions of an inch. Salvatore watches for 10 minutes without speaking. Then he says something Anthony will carry for 20 years. You see how things should work, not how you're told they work. That's rare, that's dangerous, that's valuable. Don't lose it when you join the army. Anthony looks up. I'm not joining the army. You will. War is coming. I can see it from here. This is 1938. Europe is 3 years away from burning. America is 2 years away from burning with it. But Salvatore has seen one war already. He knows the pattern, knows the rhythm, knows that young men always go and old men always stay behind to count the cost. If you go, remember, the army will tell you how things work. They'll give you equipment, they'll give you orders, but equipment fails. Orders don't account for everything. When that happens, you need to see what should work, not what you're told should work. Anthony doesn't understand yet. Won't understand until he's watching Frank Donovan die. Won't understand until he's crouched in Hurtgen Forest listening to German officers plan murder. Won't understand until the moment when regulation fails and innovation becomes survival. But the words settle into his bones anyway. Waiting for the moment when they'll matter. December 7th, 1941. Sunday morning. Anthony is 19 years old, working the docks. A foreman runs out of the office shouting about Pearl Harbor. Most of the crew doesn't know where Pearl Harbor is. Doesn't matter. They understand war. Understand that everything just changed. Understand that the young men are about to go and the old men are about to be short-handed. Anthony enlists in January, 28th Infantry Division. Pennsylvania National Guard gone federal. The recruiter looks at his paperwork, sees mechanic, sees shipyard experience, assigns him to a rifle company anyway because the Army needs riflemen more than it needs mechanics, and bureaucracy doesn't care about optimal placement. They hand Anthony an M1 Garand, teach him to shoot. He's adequate, not exceptional, just another replacement heading to Europe with mediocre marksmanship and excellent mechanical knowledge that nobody thinks to use. November 1944, Hurtgen Forest. Hell is a real place. It's located in Germany. It's 6 miles wide and it's made of evergreen trees planted so close together that sunlight only reaches the ground in scattered patches. The forest floor is pine needles and mud and bodies that haven't been recovered because recovering bodies means dying yourself. The trees are tall enough that artillery airbursts send shrapnel through the canopy like horizontal rain. Every direction looks the same. Every clearing is a killing ground. Every trail is registered for German mortars. 28th Infantry Division has been fighting here for 6 weeks. They've taken 38% casualties. That means out of every 100 men who walked into this forest, 38 are dead or wounded or missing. The survivors look like old men. Look like people who've seen the mechanism of death from the inside and can't unsee it. Anthony learns the pattern fast. American patrol encounters Germans. Americans open fire. Rifles crack, machine guns chatter. The sound carries through the trees like a bell ringing. 3 minutes later, German mortars arrive. 4 minutes if the Americans are lucky. The mortars don't care about cover. They don't care about foxholes. They detonate above the ground and send steel fragments in every direction, and the fragments don't discriminate between the men who fired first and the men who fired back. Sound kills. That's the lesson. Every engagement announces your position. Every muzzle flash is a beacon. Every gunshot is a request for artillery. Private Frank Donovan learns this on December 3rd. Donovan is from Cleveland, 21 years old. Brown hair that curls when it gets wet. He's been in country 2 weeks. Shares a foxhole with DeLuca's squad because platoons are under strength and soldiers get shuffled around to fill gaps. 2 weeks is long enough to become familiar. Long enough to learn that Donovan talks too much when he's nervous. Long enough to know about Dorothy. Dorothy is the girl back home. Donovan shows her picture to anyone who'll look. Yellow dress, standing by Lake Erie, smiling at something outside the frame. Donovan wants to marry her when he gets back. Wants to open a hardware store on Detroit Avenue. The kind of place where old men argue about the Browns and buy washers for leaky faucets. He's got it all planned. The store name, the inventory, the display windows. He talks about it the way some men talk about heaven. Like it's a place you can reach if you're good enough. If you're lucky enough. That morning, Donovan is cleaning his M1 Garand. His hands are steadier than usual. He's been shaking for 2 weeks straight, but this morning the tremor is mostly gone. He looks at DeLuca and says something that will echo. I think I'm getting used to it. 5 words. The last words DeLuca hears him speak. The German patrol comes at dawn. No warning. 6 men materializing from the gray light like ghosts solidifying. 20 yards away, close enough to see their faces. Close enough to see the breath vapor from their mouths. Close enough that there's no time to think. Only time to react. Donovan's training overrides his fear. He brings the Garand up smooth. The rifle cracks. Once. Twice. 6 times. The M1 Garand holds 8 rounds in an en bloc clip. When the last round fires, the clip ejects with a distinctive ping that every soldier in Europe knows by sound. Donovan fires 6 of 8, kills 2 Germans, sends the rest running back into the trees. He's reaching for a fresh clip when the whistling starts. Mortars make a sound coming in, a descending whistle that gives you about 2 seconds of warning. 2 seconds to drop. 2 seconds to pray. 2 seconds to understand you're probably going to, because mortars don't care if you're flat against the ground. They detonate above you and send fragments down, and the fragments find flesh regardless. 8 mortar rounds in 30 seconds. High explosive. The forest erupts. Trees splinter. The ground jumps. Smoke rolls through like fog. When it clears, 7 men are dead. Donovan, Sergeant Paul McCarthy, 5 others, all within a 40-yard radius. All killed by mortars that arrived because Donovan fired his rifle and announced his position and gave the German artillery observers a target they could plot on a map. Time from first shot to first impact, 3 minutes and 40 seconds. DeLuca is 40 yards away when it happens. Far enough to survive. Close enough to see everything. He watches Donovan's helmet fly through the air spinning. Watches it land 30 feet from Donovan's body. The helmet is undamaged. The head that was inside it is not. DeLuca crawls through the smoke, reaches Donovan's position, finds the photograph. Dorothy in the yellow dress half buried in mud, one corner torn away. He picks it up, wipes the mud off as best he can. The dress is barely visible now, just a smear of color. He keeps the photo anyway, puts it in his pocket next to his own belongings. A reminder, that night DeLuca sits in his foxhole and writes a letter he'll never send. The words come easy because they're true. Dear Dorothy, Frank died today. He was doing his duty. He was brave. He killed 2 enemy soldiers and probably saved lives by engaging them. But he shouldn't have died. The equipment didn't fail. The tactics failed. He fired his rifle like he was trained to fire it, and the sound killed him. The Germans heard him and called mortars, and 3 minutes and 40 seconds later, he was gone. I'm sorry, I wish I could tell you something better. I wish I could tell you it mattered, but it just seems wasteful. He was learning, he was getting used to it, and then he was gone because sound travels and Germans have excellent artillery, and American doctrine doesn't account for the fact that every shot you fire is a prayer for death to find you. He doesn't send the letter, doesn't have an address, doesn't want to explain how her boyfriend died for no strategic gain in a forest that will be forgotten as soon as the war ends. Keeps the letter folded in his pocket with the photograph. A promise he makes to himself. No more. No more soldiers dying because they follow doctrine. No more families receiving letters that explain nothing. No more waste. That night, Anthony DeLuca makes a decision that will cost him nothing and risk everything and save approximately 200 lives. The next morning, December 4th, he watches Private Eddie Hayes die exactly the same way. Different soldier, same pattern. Hayes spots a German sniper in a tree, takes careful aim, fires 3 times, hits on the second shot. The sniper falls. Hayes dies 4 minutes later when artillery brackets his position. The muzzle flash gave him away. The sound gave them a target. Lieutenant Henderson watches both deaths. He's 23 years old, but his eyes are 50. 6 weeks in Hurtgen will do that. He reports to battalion. Tells them the problem. We're dying because we're loud. Every time we engage, we announce our position. The Germans have better artillery, better maps, better response times. We're being exterminated by physics. The major looks at him like he's suggesting they fight with rocks. What do you propose, Lieutenant Harsh? Language. Henderson doesn't hesitate. Suppressed weapons, crossbows, knives, anything quiet. Anything that lets us kill without announcing ourselves. The major's expression doesn't change. This is a modern army engaged in mechanized warfare. We use rifles. Dismissed. Henderson returns to his platoon. Watches 3 more men die over the next 5 days. Each one announces himself with gunfire. Each one deleted by German artillery minutes later. By December 13th, the company is at 60% strength. Replacements arrive, die, get replaced again. The survivors stop learning names. Names are expensive. Names cost something when they die. December 13th, night. Anthony DeLuca can't sleep. Not because of fear. He made peace with dying 3 weeks ago. Fear is expensive and he can't afford it anymore. But frustration keeps him awake. The problem isn't German skill, isn't American weakness. The problem is physics. Sound travels at 767 miles per hour. Steel makes noise. Every engagement is a mathematical guarantee of counter-battery fire. He thinks about the rats, about the spring traps, about killing something without announcing your presence, about tension and timing and forces going where you show them to go. Around midnight, he climbs out of his foxhole, walks through frozen mud to where a Jeep sits half buried in a bomb crater. The Jeep took a direct hit 3 days earlier. The driver vaporized. Nothing left but twisted metal and personal effects scattered in a radius around the impact point. Nobody's touched the wreck. Touching things means exposing yourself. Exposure means dying. So the Jeep sits, ignored, written off, but the suspension is intact. DeLuca examines the leaf springs in darkness, runs his hands over the curved steel. Each spring is 24 inches long, designed to handle 1,000 pounds of road shock, designed to compress and compress again 10,000 times without failure. The steel is high carbon, tempered, strong enough to hold tremendous force, strong enough to release that force in a fraction of a second. Wrapped around the axle, he finds parachute rigger cord. Somebody was going to use it for something. Didn't get the chance. The cord is nylon, strong, flexible, designed to hold 180 pounds falling at terminal velocity, designed not to snap under stress. The idea forms complete, not in pieces, not gradually, just suddenly there like it was waiting for him to find it. A crossbow, not a historical recreation, a weapon built from modern materials under stored tension. The leaf springs could generate massive force. The cord could serve as a bowstring. He'd need a stock, a trigger mechanism, bolts. But the core concept is sound, is proven. Is physics that worked 400 years ago and still works now because physics doesn't change. Only technology changes. And technology is just physics shaped by human hands. He works through the night, removes 2 leaf springs from the Jeep. Each one curves like a bow already. He lays them parallel, binds them with wire at the center point. The double spring configuration creates approximately 180 pounds of draw weight, more than twice a traditional crossbow, more than enough to punch through winter clothing and the body beneath. The stock is harder. He needs something rigid enough to handle the spring's force but light enough to carry. He finds it in a destroyed rifle, M1 Garand shattered by shrapnel. The wood stock is scorched but structurally sound. He carves a channel down the center for the bolt, attaches the springs at the front using cable clamps from the Jeep's hood. The trigger takes the longest. He needs a mechanism that will hold the drawn string under extreme tension, then release instantly without jerking. He builds it from a door latch, files the catch point smooth, tests it 40 times. Each time the mechanism must hold, must release clean. Any hesitation and the bolt will tumble. Any friction and accuracy suffers. By 3 in the morning, he has something functional. The bowstring is parachute cord braided triple thickness. The draw weight is enormous. He can't pull it back with arm strength alone. He fashions a lever system, a hook that attaches to his belt. Pull the string using body weight. Lock it in place. Load the bolt. Bolts are the final piece. He makes them from tent stakes, files the points sharp, adds crude fletching from canvas scraps. Each bolt is 14 inches long, weighs about 4 ounces. Not aerodynamic, not beautiful, but dense enough to carry momentum. Stable enough to fly straight for 50 yards. At 6:15 in the morning, with dawn breaking gray through the trees, DeLuca test fires once, aims at a tree trunk 20 yards away, pulls the trigger. The bolt disappears. He hears the impact before he sees it. A solid thud. He walks to the tree. The bolt has punched through 3 inches of frozen wood, buried completely. He has to work it free with a knife. No sound except the whisper of displaced air and the thud of impact. DeLuca stands there understanding what he's created. A weapon that kills in silence. A weapon that announces nothing. A weapon built from scrap for $0 that solves a problem the Army doesn't acknowledge. A weapon that could save lives or earn him a court-martial, or both. Dawn comes at 07:15. The company is ordered forward. A reconnaissance patrol into a sector the Germans supposedly abandoned 2 days earlier. Lieutenant Henderson leads, takes DeLuca and 8 others. They move through the forest in a loose column, every man 6 feet from the next. Eyes scanning, rifles ready. The forest is quiet, too quiet. The kind of quiet that means either the Germans are gone or the Germans are waiting. They find the cellar at 03:30, what remains of a farmhouse. Walls collapsed, roof gone, but the underground storage space is intact. Stone walls, dirt floor, dry. Henderson sets up an observation post, positions men in a perimeter. DeLuca takes the northeast corner, finds a position behind fallen timber, with clear sight lines across an open area about 60 yards wide. Behind him in the cellar, 3 men settle in to rest. Bobby Chen, Mark Sullivan, Jimmy O'Brien. They've been on patrol for 18 hours. They're exhausted. Henderson rotates them off watch. They drop into sleep like men falling off a cliff, immediate, total, the sleep of the utterly spent. DeLuca watches the open ground, watches the tree line beyond, watches for movement, for shapes that don't belong, for anything that suggests the Germans didn't actually abandon this sector. At 03:47:3, German officers appear. They walk openly, no infantry escort, no caution. They move with the confidence of men in secure territory, stop 40 yards from DeLuca's position, stand near a destroyed stone wall. One spreads a map on the wall's surface. Another points toward American lines, traces coordinates with a gloved finger. The third writes in a leather notebook. DeLuca can hear fragments of their conversation. His German is limited to words learned from captured documents, but he recognizes enough. Artillery coordinates, firing times. 7:15 Uhr, 7:15, a dawn strike on American positions along the ridge. Standard protocol is clear. Report to Henderson. Henderson calls battalion. Battalion calls artillery. Counter battery fire. The officers scatter. The strike at 7:15 proceeds. 180 Americans die. Bobby Chen never meets his daughter. Mark Sullivan never teaches harmonica. Jimmy O'Brien dies at 18. DeLuca looks at the crossbow leaning against the timber beside him. Carried it for 14 hours. Hasn't told anyone. Isn't sure it works beyond that single test shot. The officers are 40 yards away, longer than his test range, but not impossible. The morning is dead calm. No wind to deflect the bolt. He has perhaps 90 seconds before they finish and move. No time to report. No time to debate. Just mathematics. Range and trajectory and silence, and 3 men sleeping 40 yards behind him who deserve to wake up. Bobby Chen with his wedding photo and a daughter he doesn't know exists yet. Mark Sullivan with his harmonica and his sister's letters. Jimmy O'Brien with his Boston accent and his father's expectation in 4 days in country. DeLuca lifts the crossbow. The hook on his belt clicks into place. DeLuca pulls the bowstring back with his entire body weight. His legs shake. The leaf springs compress with resistance that feels like trying to bend iron. 180 pounds of draw force. His thighs burn. His back strains. The string locks with a soft mechanical click that sounds too loud in his own ears but doesn't carry 5 feet. He positions the bolt in the channel. Crude sights align on the nearest officer's center mass. The man is still pointing at the map. Still talking. Still breathing. Still planning murder for 7:15 this morning. DeLuca adjusts for the downward angle, for the distance, for the cold air that makes objects seem closer than they are. He exhales slowly, thinks about Frank Donovan and Dorothy in the yellow dress half buried in mud, thinks about the promise he made to himself. No more. He squeezes the trigger. The bolt vanishes into dawn light. For a fraction of a second, DeLuca's brain loses track of it. Then the first officer staggers. Both hands fly to his throat. His mouth opens. No sound emerges. Just a wet gasp that dies before it travels. He drops. The map slides off the stone wall. The pencil rolls. 3.2 seconds. DeLuca's hands move on their own now. Muscle memory from 40 repetitions in the darkness. Hook the lever. Pull with body weight. Lock the string. Load the second bolt. His breathing stays controlled. His hands don't shake. Training takes over when thought would be too slow. The second officer turns, sees his companion on the ground. His face shows confusion first, then understanding, then fear. His mouth opens to shout. The shout would carry, would alert German positions scattered through this sector, would bring rifles and mortars and machine guns and the attention DeLuca cannot afford. The bolt hits him in the chest before sound leaves his throat, punches through the winter coat, through the wool uniform beneath, through skin and sternum and whatever lies beyond. The officer goes down, silent. His notebook hits frozen ground. Pages flutter in the pre-dawn breeze, like white birds trying to escape. The third officer runs. Wrong choice. DeLuca knows this even as he's reloading. The man should drop, should crawl, should make himself small and pray. But panic overrides tactics. Panic says run, says sprint for the tree line, says distance equals safety. The officer clutches the map like it's salvation. Like holding on to that piece of paper means holding on to control in a world that just stopped making sense. DeLuca leads him by 2 feet, accounts for speed, accounts for the stride pattern of a running man, accounts for the way each step lifts the body slightly and changes the geometry. He releases. The bolt catches the officer below the left shoulder blade, enters at an angle. The officer's legs keep working for 3 more steps. His brain hasn't processed death yet. 3 steps, then he pitches forward, face first. The map flutters from his hand, settles on frozen mud like a surrender. 40 yards away, 3 German artillery officers, dead. Total time 8 seconds. Sound none except impact and the soft sounds of dying that don't carry beyond arm's reach. DeLuca sits. The crossbow suddenly weighs 100 pounds. His hands shake now that adrenaline is draining. He stares at the weapon like it's something alien, something that shouldn't exist. His first thought is court-martial. Article 108, destruction of government property. Article 92, failure to obey orders. Maximum penalty, 5 years hard labor. In combat zones, firing squad authorized. His second thought is simpler and heavier and true. It worked. Behind him, 40 yards back in the cellar darkness, Bobby Chen shifts in his sleep, makes a small sound, settles again. Mark Sullivan's breathing is deep and even. Jimmy O'Brien whimpers softly, dreaming something unpleasant, then goes quiet. They don't know. We'll never know. In 3 hours and 28 minutes, they'll wake up. We'll eat cold rations. We'll clean rifles. We'll move when Henderson gives the order. We'll live through December 14th and every day after. We'll never know that 3 German officers stood 40 yards away planning their deaths. We'll never know that a Philadelphia dock worker with a medieval weapon and modern materials canceled their appointment with artillery. They'll never know, and that's acceptable. DeLuca doesn't need recognition, doesn't need gratitude, just needs them breathing. Lieutenant Henderson appears, moving low, crouched. He has binoculars, has been observing from a different angle, saw the officers, saw them drop, heard nothing. Now he comes to investigate because 3 men don't collapse simultaneously without cause, and Henderson needs to understand what happened in his sector. He reaches DeLuca's position, looks at the crossbow, at the bodies, back at DeLuca. His expression stays neutral, controlled. In Hurtgen Forest, you learn to keep your face still. Learn not to waste energy on a surprise or confusion, because energy is currency when you haven't slept more than 2 hours at a stretch in 6 weeks. Henderson's voice is barely above a whisper. What happened? Not quite a question. More an invitation to explain. DeLuca shows him the crossbow, lets the weapon speak, lets Henderson's eyes trace the leaf springs and parachute cord and improvised trigger and understand what he's looking at. Henderson takes it. His hands know machines. Can see this thing was built, not issued. Can see someone took equipment meant for other purposes and turned it into something the Army hasn't used since knights wore armor. You built this? Yes, sir. Last night. From Jeep parts. Henderson examines the bodies through binoculars. Counts them. 3, looks back at DeLuca. You killed 3 officers without firing a shot. Yes, sir. The pause stretches. In that pause lives DeLuca's entire future. Court-martial or authorization. Prison or approval. Punishment or permission. Henderson holds both possibilities in the silence. He hands the crossbow back. Can you make more? The question lands like physical impact. DeLuca expected arrest, expected MPs, expected handcuffs and charges, and a very long walk to the rear where officers with clean uniforms and no combat experience would decide his fate. He didn't expect this. Didn't expect his lieutenant to look at a blatant regulation violation and see solution instead of problem. Yes, sir, components everywhere. Destroyed vehicles, parachute cord in every supply dump. Tent stakes issued by the thousand. How long to build one? 6 hours if I'm careful. 4 if I'm not. How long to teach someone else? 4 hours, maybe less if they understand tension. Henderson nods once, sharp, decisive. He's making a calculation that will ripple forward through 2 weeks and 200 lives in 50 years of military history that won't recognize what happened here. By nightfall, I want 2 more. Show the armorers. No paperwork. No official channels. This stays between us until I say otherwise. Yes, sir. Henderson starts to move back to his observation point. Stops. Turns. That barrage they were planning. 7:15. Yes, sir. It would have hit Baker Company. 3 companies, actually. Intelligence estimates 180 casualties based on dispersion and timing. Yes, sir. Henderson doesn't say anything else. The math speaks for itself. 3 German dead versus 180 Americans saved. Not even a choice. Just arithmetic. He disappears into pre-dawn shadows. DeLuca is alone with a crossbow and 3 bodies and the knowledge that he just broke every rule to follow the only rule that matters. Keep your people alive. But what DeLuca doesn't know, can't know, is that the mission isn't over. The day is just beginning. And 40 yards away, more Germans are coming. At 05:15, with dawn breaking pale through the trees, German activity increases. Through his position behind the timber, DeLuca spots movement, machine gun crew. 2 men, 60 yards north. Setting up an MG-42 in a position that covers the approach battalion will use when they advance at 0600. That machine gun will cut down Americans like wheat. Standard response, call artillery, suppress the position, assault with rifles. Estimated casualties 4 to 6 men. DeLuca thinks about Henderson's question, can you make more? Thinks about the word more. Not just more crossbows, more kills, more silence, more solutions to problems that standard doctrine solves with American blood. He has 11 bolts left, 11 pieces of sharpened tent stake that cost nothing and could save everything. Sir DeLuca whispers into the field phone that connects his position to Henderson's. I have eyes on MG Nest, 60 yards. 2 crew, request 15 minutes before battalion moves. Henderson's voice crackles back. Thin, tinny, 15 minutes, make them count. The first machine gunner is loading an ammunition belt. The second adjusts the sight. The MG-42 fires 1,200 rounds per minute. In German hands, soldiers call it Hitler's buzzsaw. The sound is distinctive, terrifying. A ripping noise that means death is traveling toward you faster than you can process. This gun has killed 6 Americans in 2 days from this exact position. Everyone knows about it. Everyone routes around it. Everyone accepts that this piece of ground belongs to the Germans because taking it costs too much. Everyone except DeLuca. He aims. Mounted is 62 yards, longer than any shot he's attempted. The bolt will drop, will lose velocity. He compensates, aims high, aims for upper chest instead of center mass, releases. The bolt takes the first gunner in the chest. He slumps over the weapon. Silent. The second gunner doesn't notice immediately. He's focused on the sight adjustment. Takes him 3 seconds to register his partner has stopped moving. He turns, sees the body, reaches for his rifle. DeLuca is already reloaded. 3.2 seconds is enough time for recognition, but not enough for action. The second bolt takes the gunner in the throat as he's turning. He goes down. The MG-42 sits unmanned, unused. No longer a threat. 2 kills, 0 sound. The Germans elsewhere in the sector don't know they just lost a position. At 0521, DeLuca spots a radio position, 45 yards east. 2 operators hunched over a field radio, 1 officer supervising. They're sending morning reports, checking in with German command, reporting all quiet in this sector because as far as they know, it is quiet. Their artillery officers haven't checked in, but that's not unusual. Officers keep their own schedules. The first operator bends over the radio, adjusting frequency. His back is exposed. The bolt takes him between the shoulder blades. He slumps over the equipment. The second operator notices immediately this time. Turns, sees his companion dead. The officer grabs his pistol, scans the tree line. Can't see where the attack is coming from. No muzzle flash, no sound. Nothing to indicate direction or distance. DeLuca puts a bolt through the second operator's chest. The officer crouches behind the radio equipment, partially concealed. Smart. But he can't stay hidden forever. Can't complete his mission from behind cover. After 4 minutes, he stands, raises binoculars, scans. Exposed for perhaps 2 seconds. Enough. The bolt hits below his rib cage. Angles up. He drops. The binoculars shatter on stone. The radio position is eliminated. German command loses communication with this sector. The silence that kills Americans now kills Germans. Physics doesn't choose sides. At 0525, DeLuca spots the hardest target yet. Church Tower sniper. 3rd floor of a damaged building 82 yards away. Only visible when he leans out to scan. DeLuca watches. Counts. The sniper has a pattern. Leans out every 90 seconds. Scans left to right. 8 seconds exposed. Then pulls back. DeLuca waits through 4 cycles. Learning. Timing. On the 5th cycle, he's ready. The sniper leans. DeLuca leads by 1 foot. Releases. The bolt hits the sniper's shoulder. Spins him. He falls backward into the tower. Lands on broken floor below with a crash. First sound of the morning that carries. Germans hear it. Think something collapsed inside the church. Don't investigate immediately. By the time they do, it won't matter. 0526. Henderson's voice on the field phone. 9 down, Germans don't know we're here. How many bolts left? 11, sir. Battalion moves in 34 minutes. Keep them, Merritt. What DeLuca doesn't know, what he can't see from his position, is that German reinforcements are arriving. A supply truck. 8 soldiers, 1 senior officer, coming to resupply positions that DeLuca has already eliminated. Coming into a sector that looks secure but has become a killing ground operated by one man with a medieval weapon and modern understanding of physics. At 0530, the truck appears, rolls to a stop near the command area where the radio operators died. 8 soldiers dismount, start unloading ammunition boxes. One Oberst steps down from the cab. Senior officer, experienced, careful. He posts 2 sentries immediately while the others work. Good tactics, professional, the kind of tactics that keep soldiers alive in war. Except the sentries are 50 yards from DeLuca, and he has 11 bolts, and he understands something about silence that the Oberst doesn't. The first sentry faces away, scanning the tree line in the wrong direction. The bolt takes him between the shoulders. He drops without sound. The second sentry is 8 yards away, lighting a cigarette, the small ritual soldiers do to feel normal, to feel human, to feel like there are still people who do ordinary things like smoke and breathe and plan for tomorrow. The bolt takes him through the neck as he inhales. The cigarette drops from his lips, still burning. He collapses beside it. The cigarette continues burning. A small orange ember in the gray dawn, the only witness to his death. 4 soldiers are unloading ammunition boxes. Backs to DeLuca, clustered together. It's 55 yards. DeLuca works fast now. 3.2 seconds between shots. First soldier bends over a box, bolt in the upper back, down. Second soldier turning. Bolt catches him in the side, down. Third soldier dropping his box and running. Bolt hits his legs. He falls, starts crawling. DeLuca reloads, finishes him. Fourth soldier dives behind the truck, takes cover. Smart, but cover is temporary. Cover is a pause, not a solution. 2 targets remain visible. The truck driver in the cab, the Oberst behind the truck with the surviving soldier, both concealed, both protected by steel and geometry. DeLuca has 2 bolts left, 2 chances. The driver can't stay in the cab forever. The Oberst can't complete his mission from behind a truck. Sooner or later, they have to move. DeLuca waits. 30 seconds. 60. The driver leans out of the cab, looking to see what happened to his soldiers, looking to understand why everything went quiet. His head is visible for perhaps 2 seconds. The bolt punches through the truck window. Glass shatters, loud. The first genuinely loud sound of the morning. The driver slumps over the wheel. His weight presses the horn. The horn blares, continuous, unstoppable. The sound cuts through the dawn like an alarm announcing that something has gone catastrophically wrong. Behind the truck, the Oberst and the surviving soldier panic. The horn means discovered, means compromised, means stay here and or run and maybe live. They run, sprint for the tree line. The soldier in front, the Oberst behind, both moving fast, both convinced that distance equals survival. DeLuca tracks the Oberst, leads by 3 feet, accounts for the running stride, accounts for the panic speed, releases his last bolt. It hits the Oberst in the lower back. He falls, tumbles. The soldier keeps running, disappears into trees, gets away. 1 survivor out of 9. 1 man who will report back to German command. 1 man who will tell us stories about Americans with unknown weapons who kill in silence. 544. 17 Germans dead across this sector. 1 escaped. Time elapsed 57 minutes. Ammunition expended 17 crossbow bolts. Sound generated truck horn and breaking glass. No gunfire, no explosions, nothing that sounds like combat. Henderson appears at DeLuca's position, looks at the field of bodies scattered across 60 yards of ground, looks at DeLuca, the crossbow, back at the bodies. Jesus Christ, DeLuca. Battalion heard the horn. They think it's an ambush. They're moving up now with heavy support. Sir, tell them it's clear. 17 enemy KIA, 1 escapee heading northwest. Sector is secure. How many shots did you fire? 0, sir. Crossbow doesn't count as firing. Henderson stares, processes. 17 Germans dead and not a single gunshot. Not a single piece of evidence that Americans were here except the bodies and the strange wounds that won't make sense in any after-action report. From the cellar behind them, Bobby Chen and Mark Sullivan and Jimmy O'Brien emerged with the rest of the squad. Rifles ready, alert. They see the field of bodies, see the truck with its horn still blaring, see dead Germans scattered like someone shook them from a bag. They don't understand, can't understand. The pattern makes no sense. No blast marks, no bullet impacts, just men dead with puncture wounds that look like something from another century. Mark Sullivan walks past the first machine gun nest, sees the 2 crew members dead with tent stakes through their bodies. He looks at Henderson. "Sir, what the hell happened here?" Henderson doesn't hesitate. "Something like that." "Move out." The squad advances through the sector, stepping over bodies, scanning for threats, finding none. Bobby Chen passes the radio position, sees the 3 Germans dead around their equipment, sees the shattered binoculars, doesn't understand the geometry, doesn't understand how someone killed 3 men at a radio without making sound. Just keeps moving because that's what soldiers do. They move forward and try not to think too hard about things that don't make sense. Jimmy O'Brien is last through. He stops at the church, looks up at the tower where the sniper fell, sees the broken floor, sees the body crumpled below, crosses himself, moves on. He'll tell people later that he felt like something was watching over them that morning. Something they couldn't see, but that kept them safe. He's closer to truth than he knows. The battalion advances at 0600, expected casualties for taking this sector 15 to 20 men. Acceptable losses for the strategic value. That's what the briefing said. Acceptable. Like loss is something you can plan for. Like death is just mathematics. Actuals casualties, 0. The Germans are disorganized. Command structure eliminated. Radio network down. Artillery coordination broken. Machine gun positions unmanned. The Americans walk through like they're on parade. Meet scattered resistance. Light contact. Nothing organized. Nothing coordinated. By 0630, the sector is secure, and headquarters is trying to understand why it was so easy. Henderson pulls DeLuca aside. "You just saved 20 lives this morning, maybe more. The battalion would have taken casualties without your work. Hard to know exactly how many, but the estimate was 15 to 20. You erased them. Sir, I just did what needed doing." Henderson looks at the crossbow DeLuca still carries. "That thing, how many more can you build?" "As many as you need, sir. Materials are everywhere. By nightfall, I want 4 total. You keep 1, 3 others go to soldiers who can use them. Hunters, patient men, people who understand that silence is a weapon." "Yes, sir. But, sir, this is going to spread. Other units will notice. We'll ask questions. Let them ask. By the time they figure out what we're doing, we'll have saved 50 lives. Maybe 100. Let the paperwork catch up later." What Henderson doesn't know, what neither of them can predict, is that the paperwork will never catch up. That this innovation will spread through the division like fire through dry grass. That mechanics and other companies will hear about DeLuca's design and start building their own versions. That by December 21st, 20 days from now, 47 crossbows will exist across the 28th Infantry Division. That none of them will be documented. That none of them will appear in official reports. That the United States Army will accidentally rediscover medieval technology and use it to save 200 lives and then forget it completely because bureaucracy is slower than innovation and documentation is expensive and soldiers solve problems with what works, not what's authorized. By nightfall, December 14th, DeLuca has built 2 more crossbows, taught the process to 3 armorers who watch with fascination as he shows them spring tension and trigger mechanisms and the physics of stored force. They ask smart questions, take notes, build their own. By midnight, 8 crossbows exist in the battalion. Distributed quietly, no ceremony, no official channels, just word to squad leaders. DeLuca built something. It works. Use it. Private Danny Sullivan takes one on patrol December 15th. Different company, 2 miles north. He's heard rumors about DeLuca. Heard whispers about silent kills and Germans who died without sound. Thought it was bullshit. thought it was soldiers telling stories to pass time. Then Henderson's armorer showed him the crossbow, and Sullivan understood the rumors were too small. The truth was bigger. Sullivan's patrol encounters a German observation post. Two crew dug into a hillside, 35 yards from American lines. They've been there for days. Killed 6 Americans who tried to cross the open ground they cover. Everyone knows about them. Everyone routes around. Everyone accepts this is German ground because taking it costs too much. Sullivan crawls for 40 minutes, gets within 20 yards, eliminates both crew with 2 shots. Silent, clean, crawls back. Total time 6 minutes. German forces don't discover the bodies until noon. Don't understand what killed them. No bullet holes, no blast damage. Just 2 men dead with 14-inch stakes through their bodies like some primitive tribe still fights in these woods. By December 17th, 4 more crossbows exist. Henderson's company has them distributed to designated marksmen, soldiers with hunting experience, steady hands, patience, men who understand that killing isn't about volume of fire. It's about one shot placed correctly, one moment of perfect execution, one target eliminated before they know you're there. Doctrine emerges without being written. Use the crossbow for first contact. Eliminate sentries. Eliminate officers. Eliminate radio positions. Create chaos without announcement. Then switch to conventional weapons only when necessary. Only when silence is no longer possible. Only when the advantage of surprise has been spent. German forces begin noticing losses. Sentries vanish. Officers fail to return from forward positions. Patrols go silent without warning. The pattern makes no sense. No gunfire, no explosions, no evidence of American presence. Just men dead with mysterious wounds that don't match any weapon in the intelligence manuals. A German intelligence report from December 20th, captured 3 weeks later, describes silent American infiltrators using unknown weapons. Another report speculates about experimental suppressed rifles or air guns with subsonic ammunition. One German intelligence officer theorizes that Americans are using captured Soviet weapons modified for silence. None of them consider crossbows. The weapon is too primitive, too absurd. Modern armies don't fight with the medieval technology. Modern armies use rifles and machine guns and artillery. Modern armies make noise. That's how war works. That's how it's always worked. Except now it doesn't. Now war is silent, and Germans are dying without understanding how or why or from where, and the fear is worse than the casualties. Because fear spreads, and casualties are just numbers, but fear is contagious. Oberst Friedrich Weber commands the German forces opposite the 28th Division's sector. He's a veteran of the Eastern Front, where brutality was standard, and surprise was common, and death came in varieties that would make Western Front soldiers vomit. But the American tactics in late December confuse him. His diary entry from December 22nd describes American soldiers operating with unusual stealth. 7 officers lost this week to unknown causes. Morale declining among forward observers. Men fear an invisible enemy more than they fear artillery, because artillery you can hear coming. German patrols find the bodies. Conduct and field autopsies. The wounds are clean punctures, consistent with arrows or spears. Weapons that make no sense in 1944. Weapons that belong in museums, not battlefields. One German medical officer writes a report theorizing Americans have developed experimental flechette rounds. The concept won't actually be developed for another 15 years, but the doctor is grasping for explanations because the alternative is accepting that Americans are killing with 400-year-old technology, and that's impossible, and therefore must be wrong. By December 27th, Weber orders drastic changes. All officers must avoid forward positions unless accompanied by at least 6 riflemen. Observation posts pulled back 200 yards. Solitary reconnaissance forbidden. The Americans have become ghosts. Present, but invisible. Deadly, but silent. They could be anywhere, and you won't know until you're already dead. A captured German soldier interrogated on December 30th tells American intelligence something that will appear in reports, but won't be understood for 50 years. We don't know what weapons you're using, but we know you're there. Always watching. We can't hear you, can't see you until it's too late. It's worse than artillery. Artillery we understand. This we don't. The psychological impact exceeds the tactical advantage. German forces become cautious, hesitant to operate in small groups, reluctant to conduct forward reconnaissance. American patrols gain freedom of movement they haven't possessed since entering the forest. Intelligence collection improves. Ambushes become routine. The silent crossbow attacks create a sphere of uncertainty that paralyzes German decision-making. And the statistics tell a story that Army analysts won't understand for decades. November 1944. 28th Infantry Division. Combat engagements, 247. American casualties, 1,156. Casualty rate, 38% of division strength. German counter-battery responses, 189. Average time from American gunfire to German artillery, 3.7 minutes. December 1 through 14. Same division. Combat engagements, 212. American casualties, 1,063. Casualty rate, 41%. Worse than November. The forest is bleeding them dry. December 15 through 31. After crossbow adoption. Combat engagements, 312. More fighting than any previous period. American casualties, 704. Casualty rate, 23%. 15 percentage points lower than November. 47% fewer casualties despite 30% more combat. German counter-battery responses, 91. 52% fewer than November. Average time from American contact to German artillery, 7.2 minutes. Nearly doubled. The reduction in counter-battery fire correlates precisely with crossbow deployment. When American forces initiate contact silently, German artillery has no targeting data. Response times double. Effectiveness decreases. The sound signature or lack thereof fundamentally changes the tactical equation. Conservative estimates credit the crossbow tactic with preventing approximately 180 casualties in the final 2 weeks of December. That calculation assumes the casualty rate would have remained at 38% without tactical changes. The actual rate dropped to 23%. 15 percentage points across roughly 3,000 soldiers in active combat. The mathematics is simple. The implications are profound. One Philadelphia dock worker with $0 of Army budget and a destroyed Jeep changed American tactical doctrine. Saved approximately 200 lives. Did it without permission. Did it without recognition. Did it because Frank Donovan died and that seemed wasteful and someone needed to solve the problem that killed him. But the story doesn't end with success. Success would be too simple, too clean. The real story, the harder story, the story that matters more than the kills and the lives saved, is what happens when innovation meets bureaucracy, when results meet regulations, when the person who solved the problem discovers that solving problems without permission is itself a problem. That story begins at 08:30 on December 14th when Captain Morris appears at DeLuca's position with 2 MPs and an expression that says the reckoning has arrived. Captain Morris and 2 MPs escort DeLuca to the command tent. Inside, Colonel Harrison waits. The crossbow sits on the table between them like evidence at trial. Do you know what you did today? Sergeant, yes, sir. Engaged 17 enemy positions. Modified government property without authorization. Harrison picks up the crossbow, examines the leaf springs, the parachute cord, the improvised genius of it. Article 108, destruction of property. Article 92, failure to obey orders. Maximum penalty in combat zones is death by firing squad. The pause stretches. DeLuca can hear his future ending. Then Harrison sets the crossbow down carefully. How many American casualties did we take this morning? 0, sir. How many were projected? Intelligence estimated 15 to 20, sir. Harrison looks at the weapon, at DeLuca, at the impossible mathematics of court-martialing a man who just saved 20 lives with scrap metal and physics. I'm promoting you to staff sergeant. You'll receive Bronze Star for innovative tactics. You have 24 hours to teach our armorers how to build these. Then you're back on the line. Sir, what are you about the regulations? What regulations? I see salvaged equipment employed creatively under combat conditions. The after-action report will reflect that German casualties resulted from skilled marksmanship and tactical surprise. No crossbows will be mentioned. Dismissed. By December 31st, 47 crossbows exist across 28th Division. None documented, none official. The casualty rate drops from 38% to 23%. Conservative estimate, 200 American lives saved. On January 8, 1945, Lieutenant Henderson files a formal report requesting evaluation and standardization of the crossbow tactic. The response arrives February 9th. Improvised weapons not authorized for regular issue. Crossbow tactic noted for historical record. No further action required. The innovation that saved 200 lives is officially rejected. Forgotten. Filed away. Anthony DeLuca returns to Philadelphia in October 1945. Goes back to the Delaware River shipyards. Same job his father had. Stevedore. 6 days a week for 32 years. He marries Teresa in 1947. 3 children, 7 grandchildren. Ordinary life. The crossbow stays wrapped in canvas in his basement workshop. He never speaks of it. He dies April 15, 1989, age 66, heart attack. His obituary mentions military service in one sentence. In 1991, his daughter Maria finds the crossbow while cleaning the basement, donates it to the National World War II Museum. In 1993, military historian Dr. Patricia Hammond publishes her research, Silent Casualties, the Hurtgen Forest Crossbow Tactic. The statistics are undeniable. 38% casualties before, 23% after, 200 lives saved, 0 recognition during his lifetime. The museum display reads, Improvised Crossbow, constructed from Jeep springs and parachute cord by Staff Sergeant Anthony DeLuca. Cost to Army, $0. Lives saved, estimated 150 to 200. Official recognition, 50 years late. Bobby Chen lived until 1987. Met his daughter, never knew he should have died, December 14th. Mark Sullivan died January 23, 1945. 5 weeks longer than he should have, long enough to write 3 more letters home. Jimmy O'Brien lived until 2001. At DeLuca's funeral in 1989, he sent a wreath. The card read, "You gave me 56 years I shouldn't have had." Only he knew the truth. Physics doesn't care about regulations. It only cares about what works. Sound kills, but silence saves.